What I love about this book on power is the lessons that it provides, not because of me, but the lessons that it provides, and it applies to everyday events that are going on, and your life, as a matter of fact. Now, it doesn't come out until July 29th, but if you order it now, you're going to get the most massive discount that anybody gets, because whatever they discount it from today all the way to sales day, you get the best discount of all. And the way Amazon works is, with all its books, in fact, with all its products, it has significant discounts before the books are published, or even before the products are available, in order to encourage people to buy them, because they're a warehouse. They move them in, they move them out, they move them in, they move them out, and that is to your advantage. That's the inside baseball when it comes to books. So what I do every day, in addition to us getting the clips together, in addition to going through all the news information, in addition to all that, what I've been doing is going through my book to say, okay, let's get a few relatively concise passages that are relevant to what's taking place. We can have a little bit of fun talking about them, and you can see if this interests you or not. So I delve into sort of the middle of Chapter 1 on power. In our country, the American Revolution and establishment of a republican government were intended to secure the traditions, customs, and values of the society, as concisely set forth in the Declaration of Independence. Unlike the French Revolution, the purpose of which was to destroy the existing society, not only the ruling monarchy. Indeed, the Declaration is one of the most concise yet brilliant statements about humanity and society ever authored. This is not to say that other Western democracies lacked similar intentions, but America's purpose was known and declared before it was even a functioning country, that is, from the very beginning. And its ultimate governmental design, the national Constitution, was a direct outgrowth of this purpose, not an imposition by an elite few, since the representatives of all the colonies participated in its development from the Constitutional Convention to the state ratification conventions. So, when establishing our own government, the debates among the delegates to the Constitutional Convention and later in the state ratifying conventions focused almost entirely on how to balance the necessity of centralized power to secure the civil society and preserve individual liberty, with the recognition that in creating such an entity, they risked imperiling the American experiment if the conferred power was not offset by competing powers. For the framers, the answer was a mixed government. In essence, they adopted John Locke's overarching governmental model of separating power and Montesquieu's more precise description of government divided between and among these three entities, legislative, executive, judicial, each with relatively specific and distinct responsibilities, yet constantly competing with the others for power. Now, Montesquieu is the most widely read and cited philosopher during America's constitutional period. He's referred to directly in the Federalist Papers multiple times. And in his iconic book, it is a remarkable book, The Spirit of the Laws, Montesquieu explained that, and I quote, "Democracy and aristocracy are not free states by their nature. Political liberty is found only in moderate governments, but it is not always in moderate states. It is present only when power is not abused, but it has eternally been observed that any man who has power is led to abuse it. He continues until he finds limits. Who would think it," he wrote. "Even virtue has need of limits," he said, "so that one cannot abuse power. Power must check power by the arrangement of things. Power must check power by the arrangement of things." What I'm reading to you, the framers of your Constitution and the ratifiers of your Constitution read also. A Constitution could be such that no one will be constrained to do the things the law does not oblige him to do, or be kept from doing the things the law permits him to do. Indeed, hundreds of years later, ladies and gentlemen, the late British Christian theologian, scholar, author, one of the favorites for me, C.S. Lewis, underscored Montesquieu's point about the abuse of power disguised as virtue. He famously wrote, "Of all tyrannies," did C.S. Lewis write, "a tyranny exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. They may be more likely to go to heaven, yet at the same time likelier to make a hell on earth. Their very kindness stings with intolerable insult. To be cured against one's will and cured of states which we may not regard as disease is to be put on a level of those who have not yet reached the age of reason." In other words, treating us like children, or those who never will. To be classed with infants, imbeciles, and domestic animals. Isn't that the left, the Democrat Party today? And some Republicans too? Tyranny, when people are preaching good intentions and virtue. Montesquieu further warned, as I point out in the book, that should the distinct nature of these branches dissolve, this is crucial to what's happening today with the courts, should the distinct nature of these branches dissolve and transition from separation of powers to the concentration of powers, the result would be tyranny. Here's what he said. When legislative power is united with executive power in a single person or in a single body of the magistracy, there's no liberty, because one can fear that the same monarch or senate that makes tyrannical laws will execute them tyrannically. Nor is there liberty if the power of judging is not separate from the legislative power and from the executive power. If it were joined to legislative power, the power over the life and liberty of the citizens would be arbitrary, for the judge would be the legislator. If it were joined to the executive power, the judge would have the force of an oppressor. Got it? That's why this book is important. All would be lost if the same man or the same body of principal men, either of nobles or of the people, exercised these three powers, that of making laws, that of executing public resolutions, and that of judging the crimes or the disputes of individuals. Now notice, too, Montesquieu's observation that tyranny is not unique solely to despots, but is also to be feared in the form of groups, bodies, mobs, even legislatures. At the same state conventions, they were debating whether to ratify the proposed Constitution. In Federalist number 51, James Madison, the father of the document, echoed Montesquieu when he wrote, "Human beings are imperfect and ambitious, so we need a government structure that guards against abuses of power. Ambitions be made to counteract ambition. The interest of the man must be connected with the constitutional rights of the place. It may be a reflection on human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the government, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself." This is a famous part of the Federalist Papers, number 51, because those sentences are absolute genius. He didn't invent the idea, but the way he articulated it. I write, so much of life orbits around this word, this idea, this belief, power. And most of the discussion, to the extent it exists at all in an honest or coherent fashion, is in the form of generalities, sloganeering, demagoguery, and the like, used by politicians, media, ideologues, and academicians to manipulate, confound, and deceive, in which case power is used to control thought, discussion, and language. This book is intended to provoke a better comprehension of what is meant by power, its impact on the individual and mankind generally, and stimulate a broader examination and dialogue about its application. In doing so, If it succeeds, even modestly, perhaps it will prove an additional source for liberty against tyranny. It's a couple pages out of the first chapter on power. And again, this is just a tiny little taste of what's in this book. One part of the discussion and the reasoning about power. There's so many subjects in what is a very concisely written book, plainly written, easy to understand. Much of the debate we're having about the Middle East now, it's not really a debate. We're right and they're wrong. Much of the discussion that's going on about the Middle East today misses an entire point. We Americans, we people in the West, we have no idea about how the Islamists think, what they believe. We enter into agreements with them, economic agreements, military agreements, maybe even a nuclear agreement. And what does an agreement mean to them? Let's put aside current events. Go back whenever you want. What does an agreement mean to them in the context of an Islamist ideology? You know, next hour we're going to have our friend Zuhdi Jasser on. This guy is brave. He served in the Navy in a significant role. He's a Muslim gentleman. He's a reformer. It's important to understand what he says. It's also important to understand what others have said, including those who've written, who are repeated, who are taught, who are memorized in Gaza, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, in Iran. All of our new friends, what they think about us, why they use the money the way they do. And by the way, for all the anti-Semites out there talking about, neocons, it was always a lie that the Jews had all the money. You see who has all the money today, Mr. Producer? Qatar, Saudi Arabia. The Arabs have all the money. So let's get that hate. Let's get that straight now.